Heyo, 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 heyo. Hi, hello, folks, and welcome to day 3. And when I pull up the day 3 coverage of this trial, I listened to the first 30 seconds, and apparently, we are going to start off with the prosecution explaining why they brought the wrong evidence to court. Evidence they haven't shared with the defense. I need to wait. This demands 2 hour words. Because why not? Why not? Everything else in this trial is strange, so why not? Yeah, it's one of these trials. But before that, I want to show you some weather warnings that is close to me. We have the storm Pia rolling in, and at certain points it will reach close to hurricane strength. And so I want to show you this one. Is about high waters, because this entire storm system is pressing ocean water towards our coast. Now this is in Swedish, of course, but water rises high on the Thursday and continues to reach very high levels during the Friday, can cause flooding and damages along the coast. And let me, wrong way. For you who don't know, this is the part of Sweden I live in. And somewhere in this area is where my farm is, and I have roughly 5 miles to the coast. So I will, and with the close to hurricane strength winds and high waters, I need to be prepared. So just for notice, I am not sure I will stream tomorrow because, need to take care of the farm, need to take care of help the neighbors, and since I live close to the coast and I have my equipment, I might be one of those who deliver sandbags to the coast, to houses and farms and stuff like that. So there might not be a stream tomorrow. Just so you all are prepared for what's going on in my part of the world. But that is not why we are here today. So far, everything seems decent, but it will get worse. Yeah, welcome to Winter Storm. Hi, Dave. Yeah. Now, as I said, day 3 will start with in the Texas versus Dykes. We'll start with the prosecution explaining why they have evidence they haven't shared with the defense, and the stream started late from the court, so we didn't hear the first part of it. But yeah, let's listen to what the prosecution has to say about this.
Sort of fit the description of what, and I say sort of, it fit the description of what the FBI said, is that you could just kind of see the outline of the body, and you could not really see the body or the face of the body to identify the person. When I reviewed the videos, I was made the connection that particular video that we did turn over was the Reno's Chop Shop video. In trial preparation, I have viewed that video with the FBI Taylor Page and also Detective Stephen Prince from Dallas Police Department, who's a member of the FBI task force. They advised that is not the Reno's Chop Shop video. We have had Detective Casey Shelton. He had done a full look through Detective Ramirez's desk after she was reassigned to identify any other pieces of information or evidence that may have been on a flash drive, because it was indicated this was on a flash drive. He was unable to locate anything.
All right, and the detectives who went out to Reno's Chop Shop and actually looked at that video, are they available and ready to testify?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, that's where we're at. Anything from the defense?
Nothing from the defense at this point, regarding.
All right, then, do you have a witness tonight?
Yes, Your Honor.
Fantastic.
Okay, so missing evidence, and the defense has nothing to say. Because why not? What the it's too early to say all the words I need to say, I want to say. Here, checking the first 2 days, and yeah, I will make one of these. For day 3. One of these. I need one of these today. What did you miss? You missed that the prosecution has lost evidence. It seems like evidence that was put on a flash drive. Something about shop video that isn't there anymore, and they handed over the wrong one to the defense. So that is how we start day 3. But yeah, and yeah, I will have one of these up today, because if trial day 3 starts with this, there might be a few of these. Yeah, hey, it's just murder trial, nothing important here. Just they're trying to put away a woman for the rest of her life. That's not so important. Today, I'm not having coffee, I'm having mulled wine. It's one of these days. Because it's storming out, and it will continue to storm here. And we have 3 warnings. Yellow, orange, and red. Today, it is orange of high waters along the Swedish southern coast. And I live about 5 miles from the coast. And as I said for a few minutes ago, since I have the equipment, I might not be able to stream tomorrow, because I might be one of those who transports sandbags to protect important buildings and stuff tomorrow. So might not be a stream tomorrow. I hope it will be, but it might not be, just so you are forewarned. Hey, Merry Christmas. But okay, let's keep going with this.
And we are ready for the jury.
Skipping ahead. I saw something about
And
vomit.
this morning, Daniel's much better. It's fever broke.
Oh, good.
And he stopped vomiting yesterday afternoon, kept his dinner down. So she's planning on being back tomorrow. I don't know.
Okay. Probably somebody employed by
I did not hear from Mrs. Rick. They've given us a second AC unit, and I might try to turn it on and see how much noise it makes, because we're already at 72 degrees. I hope this is a fiberglass. All right, sir, if you would please stop and raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do, ma'am.
Thank you. You may be seated. Please watch your step.
Thank you, Your Honor.
You may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Detective, can you state your name and spell your name, please?
Stephen Prince, STEPHENPRINCE.
And Detective Prince, can you just kind of introduce yourself to the jury, let them know what it is you do for a living, your qualifications, training?
I work for the Dallas Police Department. I worked there for about 16 years. I'm currently assigned to the robbery unit. I've been there for about 8 years now. Before that, we were in the academy. We did the training for police academy specifically for Dallas, where we learned criminal code of procedure. We learned defensive tactics and arrest, search and seizure, crime scene investigation. There's continued classes we had to take regarding those things. And as we grew into being a police officer into a detective, we took additional arrest warrant training and interview techniques and things like that. I was at Southeast Patrol for a few years, and then I worked in the fugitive unit or the Metro Task Force back then for about 5 years, 3 or 4 or 5 years. And then now I'm in the robbery unit now. I'm also assigned to the FBI Violent Crimes Task Force, and where I currently work for both the robbery unit and as a task force officer.
And as far as the FBI task force is concerned, can you tell the jury a little bit more, number one, about how you were able to be assigned to that task force and what that is?
So coming out of the robbery unit, the FBI created a violent crime task force in the Dallas area. There are special agents from the FBI on that task force, as well as detectives from other units from the Dallas Police Department and from other violent crime units throughout the Metroplex, like Grand Prairie, Mesquite, and Dallas. We are tasked with investigating violent crimes. Many of them have a nexus for federal crimes. Like not every state crime is necessarily a federal crime. So our focus is on violent crimes as well as nexus to federal investigations.
How did you come to be a part of it?
Yeah. I can show you the storm system as it looks over Europe right now. So, sorry. So as you can see, it is cyclone shaped. And here is the south of Sweden. And here is the low pressure. So everything that is here is coming in over here Thursday night to Friday. So you can see it's affecting the entirety of the UK and the Northern Europe. And all of this pressures water towards Denmark and Sweden. And it will be severe once it hits. It will full force tomorrow. And I can already hear the wind outside. So, well, just a forewarning, I might not be able to stream tomorrow. And if the storm hits later today, I have to go on the big tractor and help out. Yeah, by European standards, this is severe. This is really severe. But let's get back to the trial and forget about the weather for a couple of hours.
I was selected to be part of it. Every few years, spots come open, and they approach me with interest, and I wanted to go over there, so I asked to go over.
And as far as that task force is concerned, can you kind of tell the jury about how you all work together and what types of cases you get involved in?
Well, since I work for the robbery unit, generally the cases I bring are aggravated robberies and robberies, as well as we do bank robberies and kidnappings for ransom specifically, but kidnappings where it's like not families involved. We will investigate other violent crimes that we're invited when we're invited to the investigation. And if we're specifically invited to assist on any investigation, we can assist with that if necessary. But generally, my job is to focus on large serial offenses specifically bag robberies. Many of them are business related or vehicle related. So if there's a string of business robberies we believe to be related, we'll get tasked with assisting in those investigations.
You mentioned getting invited. Let's start with you. For Dallas Police Department, your job is to investigate robbery cases, aggravated robberies, things of that nature.
Yes, ma'am. Robberies and kidnappings, but mostly robberies.
You're not a part of the, you're not assigned to the.
Why is he here?
No, ma'am.
You're not assigned to the SIU Special Investigations Unit.
I'm not.
Okay. Your work on this case solely was out of being a part of that FBI task force.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now, you mentioned that you have to be invited to some cases in order to assist with the investigation. Can you tell the jury kind of what that means and how that happens?
Generally, if it's a larger scale investigation and they need manpower or resources, there's a request for our assistance can be made, and then our bosses have conversations, and then we're assigned to those to assist with those investigations in whatever capacity is requested.
And in the same, I guess, vein, if you're assisting in a case at some point,
Yeah, maybe.
and they indicate we don't need your help anymore, then you all stop.
That's correct, yes, ma'am.
Okay. And anything that you receive on that case, as far as evidence, things of that nature, anything you're able to obtain, you turn over to that particular unit.
Yes.
Dallas Police Department.
In Dallas.
Can you tell the jury how it is that you got involved in this case?
Yes, so Marisela went missing on October the 5th. And the case was assigned. The case detective who worked in the missing persons unit reached out around October 12th of 2020 and just asked for assistance with some technical warrants as far as cellular record warrants. And there's warrants that we can write, court orders we can get signed that allow us to try to identify or locate somebody quickly in case if they're missing or in danger, or if they're a dangerous suspect, we can do that. And it allows us to get close to real-time information about the location of somebody, or if they're using a device or maybe an Instagram account to communicate. And that generally allow us to locate somebody quickly. That's originally how we were invited to the investigation.
Okay. And do you recall on what date you were invited?
About October 12th, 2020, yes, ma'am.
What sorts of things, when you all were invited in that case, October 12th, where did you start?
So initially, my partner wrote a couple of those warrants that I discussed in the attempt to locate Marisela, and Detective Dalby, who was assigned the case, wrote another warrant for another couple of warrants, and just at the very beginning of it to see if we could find or identify Marisela where she was. We also found that through the case detective that the family had come here between the 5th and about the 11th, approximately, and conducted some of their own canvassing, some of their own research about Marisela's whereabouts, and they had provided some information as far as maybe her Lyft receipt, some banking transactions, a 7-Eleven receipt, and some of the places they had gone to collect video of Marisela possibly walking around the Deep Ellum area. So we had been tasked with just kind of following up with some of that. And that's where we spent the majority of our time in the Deep Ellum area, conducting a canvass to see if we could find any additional video with Marisela and whoever she was with at the time. And then we followed up with 7-Eleven and things like that.
Okay. And as far as you said, Detective Dalby is a youth crimes detective, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And that's where missing persons cases, adult or otherwise, go first.
Yes.
Okay. And in your experience, these cases, when you have a report of a missing person from a family member of a young person in their 20s that's here on their own accord, is it typical that case receives a lot of priority as far as resources going out into the neighborhood looking?
From my understanding, no. I don't work a lot of those cases, ma'am, but this is my very limited understanding is no. It's traditionally a lot of resources aren't committed to those investigations.
And they get lots and lots of those calls.
That's my understanding. Yes, ma'am.
Your understanding is that a lot of maybe young people that just decide they don't want to go home, or they don't contact people, things of that nature.
Correct.
Okay. With Marisela, you discussed that the family provided bank records, Lyft receipts, 7-Eleven receipt, or at least a 7-Eleven location where she had used her bank card. Is that correct?
It was a 7-Eleven that she had used her bank card. We reached out to 7-Eleven LP, which is the loss prevention or asset protection guys, and provided them with that information, and they gave us a good address for where the transaction occurred.
And you were able to follow up with 7-Eleven?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I want to go back before we talk about 7-Eleven. When you got the returns on Instagram for Marisela and you received her phone records back, did it indicate that there was any activity at all on Instagram or on her phone records after the probably morning hours of October 5th, 2020?
No,
Now, you mentioned 7-Eleven, and you also mentioned that you all canvassed the area for some surveillance videos of maybe just seeing Marisela and who she was walking around with in Deep Ellum, correct?
yes, ma'am.
Your Honor, may I approach, actually, let me back up just a second. And were you able to find some videos, a couple videos that showed her clearly walking, was definitely her, based on the description of what she was wearing and, what time she was down there?
Yes, ma'am.
And were you also able to obtain a 7-Eleven surveillance video that appeared to be Marisela with an individual named Charles Beltran?
Yes.
Now, as part of your investigation, you talked to several people as well that had maybe connections to Charles Beltran, to Lisa Dykes. Were you able to learn in your investigation that Charles Beltran lived with Lisa Dykes?
Yes, ma'am.
And so did that become important to kind of understand and try to talk to Ms. Dykes and anyone else that maybe had contact with Charles Beltran?
Yes.
Tell me how you were able to develop which vehicle you were looking for, and when it comes to looking for Charles Beltran.
So one of the videos provided through Detective Dalby from the family's initial research was from a camera on the back of the Punk Society at 3723 Elm Street. That camera was actually attached to the back of the Punk Society, focused forward, being north towards the parking lot. We actually call it July Alley in a parking lot, and then 2700 Indiana Street. There was footage of them being Marisela and Mr. Charles Beltran walking together towards the parking lot where we believe they entered a vehicle. We collected 7-Eleven surveillance footage, like we talked about, and from that footage, a black sedan arrived in the parking lot, which coincided with them entering and conducting their transaction about 1:28 a.m. that morning of October the 5th. We ran license plate reader research, which is basically, and throughout the city, there are both mobile cameras and fixed cameras that can capture pictures of license plates and information about them. We found that at about 12:55 a.m., there was a capture of a black Audi A3 that was registered to Charles Beltran and Lisa Dykes at 3113 Kensington. We pulled the driver's license picture of Mr. Beltran, and it matched the person who had walked in with Marisela to that 7-Eleven that morning.
Okay. And so at that point, Mr. Beltran becomes what we call a person of interest.
Yes.
Everything
Your Honor, first witness.
shows shock.
Detective, I'm handing you
Hi,
with
sir.
Mark States Exhibits 284 through 293. Can you just kind of flip through those photographs?
That's Charles Beltran.
Without telling it,
Oh,
just
yeah,
look
sorry,
at them first. I'm
apologies,
sorry.
This is going to check your connections. My feed is not working.
And then the last two photographs are not. I'm sorry.
Okay, I just unplugged and replugged, so that's it.
I'm sorry, please.
Do you recognize what's contained in each of those photographs?
I do, yes.
Okay, and are those fair and accurate representations of those individuals in the two vehicles photographed?
Yes, ma'am.
And then I'm also showing you what's been marked States Exhibit 294 and 295. Did you watch those two videos yesterday in my office?
I did, yes, ma'am.
And I believe on 294, there's two separate surveillance videos from Deep Ellum, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Are those fair and accurate representations of those videos?
They are.
Your Honor, I move to admit States 284 through 295 for all purposes. Entering to defense counsel.
Thank you.
No objection from the defense judge. They have been previously tendered.
All right, States Exhibits 284 through 295 are admitted for all purposes.
Okay, so
Your Honor,
now
permission to publish.
pictures of Marisela with shock.
We'll just start with States 292.
Everything in this trial points to Chuck, but it seems like
Is this the black Audi
he's squealing.
that came back to that license plate that you saw in the surveillance video?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And who, when you did the license plate I guess check or run, who did that blackout come back?
Lisa Dykes and Charles Beltran.
Okay, so both of them.
Yes, ma'am.
And let's take a look at states. States 294. These are some of the videos, or the videos of Marisela that you were able to look and find and develop that show clearly who that is, correct?
Yes, the email, yes, ma'am.
So she bought her toy boy a $55,000 car. Gee. Wow, he must have a huge ding dong.
And detective, were you also able, based on that license plate, to determine an address for a possible location?
Yes, ma'am.
And what was that
Hey,
address?
Kaiser.
3113 Kensington in Mesquite.
Is that in Dallas County?
Yes.
In the state?
Hello, Kaiser. Welcome to the lesbian couple with toy boy allegedly killed a tourist trial. It's a strange case, an even stranger trial, because so far, in the first 2 days of this trial, everything points to Chucky, or Charles Beltran. But he is the one who is snitching on Lisa Dykes, so she is the one on trial. But so far, everything points to him. He is the one with a record of violence against women. He is the one who brought the victim to the house. He is the one who was last seen with the victim. He is the one who acted completely normal the day after. He is the one who lied to the cops for months until he snitched on Lisa Dykes. And now Lisa Dykes is the one on trial.
Yes.
Yes.
About 9,400.
So looking at the top video,
Hi, Brandon.
and let's pause it for just a minute. Can you tell the jury kind of where we are and where this is looking out in relation to the businesses that are right there?
As we discussed, ma'am, this is the back of the Punk Society at, I believe it's 2723 Elm Street. Those cameras are covering the back of the building, or the row of buildings right there, facing towards, I believe, 2700 Indiana. There's a parking lot between there, and that's what we're looking at.
And in this particular video, what is it that you're looking for, or what is it that you see in this video?
So there's two different videos taken from the same camera, and one is very hard to tell, but if you were looking at the 10, 5, 20 right there, there's at the top right of the screen, there's two individuals walking that way. Let's call it right to left on the screen. It's difficult to see based on the next video we watch. We believe that to be Marisela and Charles.
Would it be more beneficial to watch the second video first?
Yes, ma'am, probably.
Let's go ahead and cue up that video. And Your Honor, we didn't lie.
The claims of, he hasn't testified yet, Mr. Chucky. But according to the prosecution's opening statement, he brought her back to the house. They had schmexy time. She was on top of him. He fell asleep during schmexy time and then woke up because, according to him, the defendant, Miss Dykes, was doing stabbing motions towards the victim, Marisela Botello. That's his story. And that's the story he started telling about a year later, after being in custody and everything. So, yay! Here's the thing. Yesterday we watched and listened to the blood evidence from the house. No blood spatter in the entire house. As you might know or might have seen in other trials, when you do stab emotion, blood gets thrown everywhere. There is no evidence of blood spatter on the alleged crime scene. Not on the ceiling, not on walls, not on floor, nothing. So my working theory at the moment is that he did it in some way or fashion, or drugs was involved and she died of overdose. And since he has all the history of violence towards women, and his best option was to snitch. And here we are.
So as we talked about, based on the dress and the description we have of Marisela, as well as this other individual, we see them walking northbound. I believe it's northbound from the location towards the parking lot. Based on the dress and description, we believe that to be Marisela, from my understanding, sort of the family. And then as a person they identified is as Chuck at the time.
And this video that we're watching, this is the video. You didn't pull this video. This came from the family, correct?
This came at the request of the family, yes, ma'am.
You all were able to have a video just like this, but without the commentary of the bar patrons in the back.
Yeah, we were able to view that video, yes, ma'am.
Okay, so you viewed this video.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And it appears from that video they're walking off together. Nobody's being forced anywhere.
Correct.
Okay. And in that video, does it appear that either one of those individuals is extremely intoxicated?
Not to me.
Once you get that license plate, as you said, you're able to kind of get an address. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. And in showing the second video, it's really hard to see, but you can see way off in the distance them getting into the car together. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's what it appears to be based on them walking that direction. The two figures are moving towards a car together.
Okay. And can you just pause it right there for a second? Can you kind of point out to the jury on that screen above you, if you turn around and look on the TV screen right there, where is it that you're seeing those two individuals?
If you're looking at the number 10 at the top right corner of the screen for October, just below that, they're walking right to left on the screen.
If you know, do you see them pull away from that area in the black Audi?
You can't tell what kind of car it is. There, it looks like just a black sedan that they're entering into, ma'am. That's about all I can say.
Good work, camera guy. Looking at the wrong end of the video.
So that's initially when we kind of learn, when we get that license plate hit, that you want to talk to Charles Beltran, correct?
That's correct.
You also find a surveillance video of 7-Eleven.
Yes,
And
ma'am.
we're going to play what's been marked as State's Exhibit 295. This is kind of the upper shot from the doorway area, correct?
Yes, ma'am, from that 7-Eleven at Gaston and Haskell, which is just east of the Deep Elm area.
That's a decent surveillance camera. I'm used to the grainiest of grainy, but this 7-Eleven, they had good surveillance. I'm playing this in 1.25 for you who don't know. So they are actually talking and showing this even slower.
I believe they enter at about 1:25
More raid!
a.m., 1:24, 1:25 a.m.
Hey,
Okay, we'll, kind of move forward.
thank you, Mo. I hope you had a good morning.
Okay, is this, Ms. Botello, Valdez, and Mr. Beltran entering?
Yes, ma'am.
And it appears she's just going over to some drink coolers.
Yes, ma'am.
And that's consistent with the purchase receipt that you all obtained, correct?
Yes.
I believe she maybe got like a Coke Zero.
She's got a few items.
So this
in purchase, and then
womanizer,
left.
manly man, had her by the booze? What a fucking loser. Oh, sorry. He has the women buying all the things for him. Failed rapper. Yeah. And hello everybody over at Rumble. Welcome. And please put something in the chat so I know you all are there. Thank you. No, not a hairdresser rant today. She was testifying yesterday. I posted the Rumble stream in the YouTube chat, so if you have Rumble, please go over there and follow me on Rumble. Give a thumbs up over there, so Rumble algorithm picks me up as well. Thank you. Yeah, and as we look at her, one of the theories here is that, according to Mr. Chucky, and a theory from the prosecution is a mistaken identity. That Lisa Dykes thought Marisela was her wife Nina, because she had banned Nina and Chucky from having relations. Here's the thing. Marisela is about 5 feet nothing, 100 pounds, tops. Nina has a good 100 pounds on her. There's no way, in my opinion, they could mistake those two for each other in any way, shape, or form. Because that Marisela is thin as a stick. Nina is a large woman.
appears at that point she's left. Is there any other content on there that's relevant to this case?
Not that I recall, ma'am. Just there's another angle that shows the black sedan pull up prior to them entering. That's it.
That's it.
Yes, ma'am.
And based on that video, again, it appears that she's there willingly with Mr. Beltran, correct?
It appears that way, yes, ma'am.
But you didn't stop at that video. You mentioned earlier that one of the violent crimes that you all are able to help Dallas Police Department with is kidnapping possibly.
Yes, ma'am.
And is that kind of the reason why you all were invited into this case?
Yeah, one of the reasons at the very beginning, yes, ma'am.
Okay, I thought maybe it was possibly kidnapping because you just was gone.
That's correct.
And what were some of the other reasons that maybe kidnapping or unlawful restraint or something of that nature was considered a possibility rather than Miss Marisela just deciding not to come home and going on bender?
The family brought that information. She still had money left in her bank account. Generally, if someone's on a vendor, we understand that they will be spending their money to feed that. She also had a stable job, stable home life from what we understood, and that she had not been known to do this before. She had not disappeared like that before. One of the stable home lives we were able to understand is her family did come all the way down from Seattle or friends came all the way from Seattle to Dallas to look for her, which they believed it was out of the realm of her normal behavior to do that.
Yeah, Your Honor, we are finished with the video. So.
Yeah, and still the first cop who received the missing persons call did fuck all and asked them to wait. And then the family and friends got down from Seattle and started to make noises. And all of a sudden, at least something happened. And then, because this video was not through police, it was not through FBI. This was the family going to 7-Eleven and ask for video. Hadn't they done that, this recording might have been lost before the police and FBI got to it.
Thank you, Judge. So based on that, this is kind of how you all began being involved in the investigation, correct?
That's correct, yes, ma'am.
So initially, when you saw this video, it's not like you just said, okay, we're done. Did you, at that point, did you continue trying to investigate, get some leads on how to talk to Mr. Beltran?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And in doing so, were you able to, did you try to get a good phone number from Mr. Beltran?
Yes.
How were you able to develop that?
We didn't get one originally, so we couldn't, like I never was able to find one. So maybe somebody else did the investigation, but originally I wasn't. Detective Dalby was eventually able to identify a phone number for him, but we were also able to identify other phone numbers in the investigation.
Okay, whose phone numbers were you able to identify?
Lisa Dykes and Nina Marano eventually.
And you also had a phone number for Mariselas.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And part of what you all did was to get a search warrant for what's called call detail records, correct?
Eventually, yes, ma'am.
Okay. And you were able, one of the tools of that, as we had said before, the FBI, the Dallas Police Department, they have individuals that are certified and able to read those records and I guess plot where the cell phone tower data is, what cell phone towers those devices are hitting off of based on the phone calls, text, and internet use.
Leading.
Correct.
You were not certified to do that, so I'm not going to ask you
No,
about that.
I'm not, no, ma'am.
Okay, but you can look at a call detail record and tell, when phone calls are made back and forth and things of that nature.
Yes.
Okay. And you said you were able to locate a phone number for Miss Lisa Dykes and Miss Nina Marano, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Why did that become important to you?
Eventually it became important to me because we know they're related to the address and Mr. Charles Beltran. Through the eventual investigation, we knew them to be involved in a relationship that we found out later on. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and so you didn't know this event initially, but you did know that Mr. Beltran at least lived at that address and that Lisa Dykes also lived at that address.
They did this because the family and friends of Marisela forced the local cops to actually start investigating. By going there, making loud noises about it, handing out flyers, getting the video surveillance for the police because the police did fuck all in the beginning. They didn't get to the house until a month later to search it for evidence. And then they found small areas of that blue. They sprayed some Blue Star and they found some areas. And eventually, when it was tested, they found the DNA of Marisela Botello in that house. But not until the family and friends of Marisela forced the cops to do something.
That's correct.
Yes.
Was there anything indicating that Nina Marano lived there full time in your initial investigation?
No.
Okay, that came later.
That's correct. Yes.
So every time he says eventually, it's because more or less they couldn't avoid it because the family made so much noise in the papers, in the news. So then they had
Looking
to
at
do
that
something.
chart, now you may not have talked to every single one of these people, but does this chart kind of give a nexus of the individuals that were talked to in the investigation? One of the areas that in Deep Ellum that was kind of central to the investigation.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and that's an accurate representation.
Yeah, to the best of my knowledge, yes, ma'am.
Your Honor, state offer states 296 for all purposes to the defense.
No objection.
Right, this is at 296 is admitted for all purposes.
And Your Honor, permission to publish.
May.
And we're offering 297, which is just a larger copy of 296 for demonstrative purposes.
Then 297, the blown up version is admitted for demonstrative purposes.
All right, so, and Detective, you can't really
Hi,
see that.
Mrs.
but
Tegriff.
You can stand down if you
If
need.
you want to stand down for just a moment, we
Yes,
can
ma'am.
kind of talk a little bit about some of these individuals. Located in the middle is Miss Lisa Dykes. Were you ever able to have a conversation with her?
My partner was when we knocked on the door there, yes, ma'am.
Okay, and we'll talk more about that in just a moment. In that photograph, that's a picture of her. You went down to Florida at some point in March of 2021, when Miss Dykes and Miss Marano were able to be located in Miami, Florida. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
That's actually a picture of her from Orlando, Florida. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And this is Nina Marano.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, that's a photograph of her from Miami, Florida.
It is, yes, ma'am.
This is Charles Beltran.
Mhm.
Do you know where that photograph was taken?
I don't.
Okay. Down here, you were able to talk to Dak Stevens, correct?
But yes, I've had conversations with her, yes, ma'am.
Okay. And this is that on-premise bar where everyone kind of met, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And then Freddie Chapman, he's an associate. You were able to meet him yesterday.
Yes, ma'am.
Did you ever speak to him in your investigation?
No, not that I recall. No.
Okay. Kyle Williams. Who is Kyle Williams? We haven't talked about him.
That's one of the sons of Lisa Dykes.
Okay. Is he, at the time of this offense, did he live here locally?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And then Valerie Salinas, we have here as associated as a girlfriend of Kyle Williams. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Were you able ever to talk to Valerie Salinas?
Yeah, briefly, yes.
Okay. Maybe that's better. You never talked to Jamie Scarpa, correct?
No.
Okay, Kathy DeLeon.
So he never
you
talked
to Rosa Maria
to half
Olivia
of these
Martinez.
people?
Okay, and she's identified as a co-worker of Lisa Dykes, correct?
Yes.
And then, were you ever able to speak with or be present for an interview with Jimmy Dykes?
Yes.
Okay, and so this just kind of gives, there's a lot of parties involved, a lot of people involved. I say parties loosely, what I mean is just people, individuals involved that know Lisa, Nina, and Charles, and kind of know a little bit about the history and background and the nexus between all of these people, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And so this is just helpful for the jury to understand who was involved and kind of give them a roadmap.
Yes.
Now, I'm going to back this up a little bit. We're going to talk a little bit more about your investigation. You said that once you got that video and it was clear that Marisela wasn't forced to go anywhere with Mr. Beltran, that you all didn't stop. You kind of developed some more, I guess, leads as far as talking to certain people, correct?
Just to close the loop of that investigation, when we found out she had walked in there, we tried to contact the last person that we knew to see Marisela, and at that point in time, we knew it to be Charles Beltran.
And knowing that Mr. Beltran lived with Lisa Dykes, did you all attempt to contact her?
Yes.
And how did you do so?
We went to her address, knocked on the door, rang the ring doorbell. No one answered, so we had identified a phone number for my partner Taylor Page for the FBI. Called her on the phone and spoke to her while we were standing at the residence.
Okay, and were you present for that conversation?
I was.
Did you hear the exchange between them?
But yes, part of it he was speaking on the phone with her, and the other part it was on speaker. So yes, I was there. I was right next to him for the conversation.
In that conversation, did Ms. Dykes indicate that she had any idea about Mr. Beltran's whereabouts?
No.
Okay. Did she indicate whether she had seen him recently?
She said she had not.
What was the time frame that she said?
A matter of weeks.
Okay, what day was this?
October the 15th, 2020.
Okay, so October 15th, 2020, she says that she hasn't seen Mr. Beltran for weeks, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and did you all ask her to reach out to you if she saw him again, or how did that conversation go?
Yes, it was just, hey, if you find information, please contact us.
Did you let her know why you were trying to contact him at that time?
We did.
And what did you tell her?
As in relation to Charles and who is related to the, we believe we said the missing girl from Seattle that had come down here. We had developed information that she had been with Charles, and we were just trying to find either her or Charles, the last person we needed to have contact with.
So a bit of time frame here. She went missing in the night between October 4th and October 5th. Family tries to report her missing. The cops they don't care. They go down from Seattle to Dallas, starts handing out flyers, starts asking questions, force the police to actually open an investigation. Couple of days later, somebody calls the FBI and says something about blah, blah, blah. By this time, the family has recovered the video surveillance already, gave it to the cops, and still it took an additional few days until October 15th when they actually went to the address. Knocked on the door, nobody home. Lisa said, I haven't seen Chucky in weeks. Then it took them an additional 16 days to get their thumbs out of their butts and get a search warrant for the house. And by that time, the house was almost cleaned out. Imagine if that first call was taken seriously. Imagine if they actually started to listen to the families in the first few days, what kind of evidence they could have recovered. But they didn't. Dallas PD did fuck all for almost a month. Not until, they seem to have moved out. We have a search warrant. The house seems empty. Not until then they started to take this seriously after she had been missing for almost a month. Are you all as pissed off as I am? Good. Because every missing piece of evidence in this trial is because the Dallas PD did fuck all about it.
And did she indicate whether or not she would talk to you if she found him or heard from him?
Yeah, we had gone, I believe so, yes.
Okay. Unfortunately, the ring video that you were able to pull via search warrant from Lisa's house didn't have the audio recording of the conversation, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Your Honor, permission to approach?
You may.
But on that ring video, you made it very clear that you were legitimate FBI officers.
Yes, I was wearing a shirt that said FBI on it, and we had a uniformed Mesquite police officer with us.
Okay. Detective Prince, I'm handing what's been marked State's Exhibit 298. Did you watch that ring video yesterday in my office?
I did, yes,
And
ma'am.
it's fair and accurate representation?
Yes, ma'am.
Your Honor, State moves to admit State's 298 for all purposes. Considering to defense counsel.
No objection, Judge. It's been previously tabled.
Right, so it's 298 is admitted for all purposes.
Commissioner Pelish,
You may.
and this is short, I don't think we need the lights out, Your Honor.
Thank you for being here, Gigi. I know you have a lot of other things to do. Thank you for being here. that would be cops at the door ring bell.
Who's that person in the front there?
That's Special Agent Taylor Page.
Okay. And then you have a uniformed officer with you?
Yeah, Mr. Marcus Rodriguez. Yes, sir.
Is that you kind of walking back and forth in the background?
Yes, ma'am.
So right after kind of the end of that ring video, is that when Special Agent Page called Lisa?
Yes, ma'am.
About what time of day was this?
About 4:10 in the afternoon on October 15th.
And
So during office hours.
you were able to obtain via search warrant and the call detail records of Lisa Dykes, correct?
Yes, ma'am. Later in the investigation.
Later in the investigation. And
Later
you
in the
reviewed
investigation.
those,
How much later?
calls,
Months?
were you able to determine that she had been having contact with Charles Beltran?
Yes, ma'am.
Detective Offering was been marked as State's Exhibit 299. Are those the call detail records that you reviewed in preparation for today?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and you actually made some marks in there indicating the calls between Charles Beltran and Lisa Dykes, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and then I believe you also made a notation of a box for a different call, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And those are all your marks?
Yes, ma'am.
Your Honor, State Officer States 299 for all purposes.
No objection, Judge.
State's Exhibit 299 is admitted for all purposes.
Commissioner Phelps, Your Honor?
You may.
And we're not going to go through every single page of this, but I want to just start with kind of helping you orientate the jury as to what exactly you are looking at when it comes to these call detail records. Okay, starting with the left, the search warrant that you all received, you just got the dates from 10/1/2020 to 11/23/2020.
Yes, ma'am.
And when you're getting a search warrant for like call
Okay. Search warrant was October 1st to November 23rd for the call records. That tells me that the search warrant was issued much later than that. So again, fuck all for months. I not entirely sure. Maybe not even. Maybe just after they found the remains, somewhere around there, they started to actually work.
detail records and things of that nature. I mean, it's not like you can ask for every phone call they've ever made, right?
That's correct.
Okay, it has to have specified dates for specified reasons.
Yes, ma'am.
And so in this case, the dates were the October 1st to November 23rd, 2020, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Item number, it just lists each call, either incoming or outgoing.
Yeah, just the transaction the phone made at the time. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, we call detail records, with these records, are there text messages indicated?
Later on, yes, but right here, this appears just to be phone calls. But yes.
Okay. And this connection time, it says, well, it doesn't say connection, but connection time, UTC, what does that UTC mean?
The UTC means Universal Time Coordinated, which is just basically how many of us will mark our clocks at that point in time. We're talking about the 1st of October 2020. So that time frame, which would be a military time, would be 5 hours ahead of our current time here at Central Standard Time.
Okay. So to get the Central Standard Time, you said that this one is 5 hours?
Yes, ma'am.
Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And so basically you have to kind of go back when you're looking at the time. If this in military time, this is 13:43. So in our time, that would be what?
8:43 a.m.
Okay. And when I say our time, I mean Central Standard Time.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. The originating number, that's the number that's calling.
Yes, ma'am.
And then the terminating number is the second number, correct?
Correct.
Seizure time, do you know what that indicates?
Don't.
Okay. ET, is that the estimated time of the connection between the two parties?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So in looking at these phone records, I'm going to focus on the phone calls between the phone number associated with Mr. Beltran, and that's the 214-600-0181, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And then Lisa Beltran's is the 407-406-3757.
That's correct.
Okay. And these first ones, October 2nd, just between the two of them, you see that the originating number is Mr. Beltran, and the terminating number is Ms. Dykes.
That's correct.
Okay, and just, we have an estimated time of 0. And according to your investigation, October 2nd, Marisela had not met Mr. Beltran yet.
That's correct.
Okay, so I'm just gonna move forward to, kind of the dates and times in question, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, this phone call right here. Line 176, there was a phone call, originating number was Lisa, Ms. Dykes, and the terminating number was Mr. Beltran, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And it says 122, connection time 122 a.m. and 55 seconds a.m., is that correct?
That's correct. Yes, ma'am.
So for Central Standard Time, test your math skills, what would that be?
That would be 8:22 p.m. the night before on October the 4th. So we're looking at October 4th, 2020 at about 8:20. Yeah, at 8:22 p.m.
Now in line 181 and 182, this is on 10/5/2020. Connection time is the military time, 11:59 and 15 seconds. What conversion does that come out to in Central Standard?
No worries.
No, it'd be
Not much
October
else
5th, 2020
happened
at
so far.
6:59 a.m.
And it appears there are 2 phone calls that are made. Do these appear to be made back to back, or are these the same phone call, or do you know?
I don't know. I'm not sure.
Okay. And it looks like there is some sort of phone call or communication attempt between Lisa and Mr. Beltran, and there's no connection.
That's correct.
Whether he just refused the call, didn't go through, you don't know.
I don't know.
And it looks right there, that's an oversight. That is not Mr. Beltran's done that, correct?
No, that was a mistake on my part.
Oh, really? Shocker.
Looking here on lines 212 and 213, we see at 10/5/2020 at 20:22 and 47 seconds. What is that in Central Time?
Approximately, 3:22 p.m.
Okay.
on Central Time.
And there's a phone call or a connection made between Ms. Dykes and Mr. Beltran for about 44 seconds.
Yes, ma'am.
And that would be in the afternoon of 10/5.
That would be, yes.
Here on line 257 and 258 at 5:24 a.m. No, I'm sorry. Let me go back. That looks like when it says 00, that's
That would be midnight 05, effectively 24, which would convert to October 6, 2020 at 7:05 p.m.
and Ms. Dykes reaching out to Mr. Beltran and estimated time 0.
Yes, ma'am.
So far, it looks like Miss Dykes is trying to get a hold of Chucky, and he is not having it. Again, I'm not sure about you folks, but for me, that says more about Chucky than Lisa.
And these are just calls, not texts, correct?
From my understanding, yes, just calls.
Okay. An additional call is made right after that. So that was
Yeah,
midnight 05. This is midnight 06.
yes, ma'am.
Which remind me again is
It's going to be 7:06 p.m. on October the 6th.
okay, and then 7:08.
Yes, ma'am.
And all of them
And
0
again, this is
seconds.
1:20.
So it'll be at 8:20 p.m. on
Indeed.
October the 6th.
Okay, and it appears there none of those calls were connected, correct?
That's what it appears, yes, ma'am.
Okay, and these are all coming from Ms. Dykes to Mr. Beltran.
Correct.
An additional call on 10/7 made at
12:39 p.m. our time, or
Okay.
Central Standard Time.
And again, no connection.
Correct.
Now we're getting some minutes here.
And lines 275, 276, and 277.
No, we don't.
Calls made on 10/7. This one right here would be
He's not
5:39 p.m.
Okay.
Sorry, 12:39 p.m. Central Standard Time. Then 12:40 p.m. Central Standard Time on October the 7th.
to Mr. Beltran.
Yes, ma'am.
We have 2031, which is 3:30.
Yes, ma'am. That's correct.
And
1 second,
it
6
looks like an
seconds.
identical entry right there.
That
It's
looks
like
like
Mr.
Chucky
Beltran.
doesn't want to
There's
talk.
1 second connection on the second.
To Lisa.
Yes, ma'am.
Again,
This is-
000.
This would be October the 8th at 8:03 p.m. Central Standard Time, followed by 8:10 p.m. and 8:10 p.m. on Central Standard Time.
Okay, so it looks like there's 3 calls in succession there
Yes,
and no connection. Minus this 1 second right there.
right.
So there were several phone calls in a row in 10/7 and 10/8 where there was no, it appears there's no conversation.
Not until the
As far as I can
9th.
tell.
4 days after the disappearance, Chucky starts talking to Lisa again. I don't see this speaking towards Lisa. I see this as Chuck trying to avoid. Yeah.
Okay. And then on 10/9 of 2020,
At-
at 17:31,
That would be about 12:31 p.m. Central Standard Time.
okay, there's a 7-minute
I
phone
will call.
7-minute,
Welcome.
25-second phone call where Mr. Dykes, Mr. Beltran calls Ms. Dykes.
Yes, ma'am.
And
Okay,
that
so
happens-
4
appears
days
to be a
after the
7-minute,
disappearance,
25-second phone call, correct?
he calls
ma'am.
Lisa. And she picks up, and they have a 7-minute call. And on the
And
9th,
9, this is a Ms. Dykes
More-
call, and just in a few days.
That's correct.
And also just right after she reported missing by the family.
That's correct.
10/11, we have at, what is that, 18/6?
Yes, that would be 6:46 p.m. on Central Standard Time, and that would be Ms. Dykes calling Mr. Beltran.
And no phone conversation takes place there, correct?
Correct.
Now, 10/13, Mr. Beltran reaches out to her at about 7 p.m., 7:04 Central Standard Time on the 12th,
That's correct.
okay? And there's a minute 40.
what would be really interesting is to see from where he's making those calls. Because she apparently can't get a hold of him, not until he calls her. So from where did those calls originate? Because that data should be in there somewhere as well. Where was he when he made those calls?
3-second phone call made. And that looks like
Appears to be the same call.
appears to be the same call. At about 11 a.m. Central Standard Time, 11:49 a.m. Central Standard Time.
That's correct.
Okay, Ms. Dykes.
No.
Calls him.
About
It's
this,
4 minutes, 7
when
seconds.
she said on the
Yes,
15th
ma'am.
that she hadn't heard from him for weeks, well, she lied. Because apparently
Additional calls made on 10/13.
he called her.
And that's about 12:20 p.m.
Uh,
Beltran. That's where there's multiple more phone calls between the two of them, minute, 2 minutes, things of that nature. Some calls don't connect her that day, this is just the day before on the 14th that you contact her at,
That's at 2:46 p.m. on Central Standard Time.
thank you, Ms. Dykes reaching out to Mr. Beltran and no connection there.
Yes, ma'am.
And then an additional phone call where she is attempting to connect with him,
So about-
just 15 minutes later, maybe an hour, I'm sorry.
That's about an hour, 15 minutes later. Yes, ma'am.
So it's clear from that they're talking,
Yes, ma'am.
they're communicating.
Yes.
Yeah, but the communication I see, when Lisa calls him, he's not answering. They're only having conversation when he calls her back. Please let there be text messages at least, and some data from where
Now,
he made the call.
Highlighted in yellow, right here at 10/15/2020, and this is about 4:12.
Yes, ma'am. 4:12 p.m.
Central Standard Time.
Yes, ma'am.
Whose phone number is this?
That's Special Agent Taylor Page's phone number.
Okay, and it connects with Ms. Dykes,
Yes, ma'am.
and they speak for about 4 minutes and 17 seconds.
Correct.
And that's when you identify who you are. You're looking for Mr. Beltran. You want to talk to him. Let us know if you've heard from him. Where is he? Things of that nature.
Yes, ma'am.
And she indicated to you, and again, you were in full uniform. There was an officer there. She indicated to you she didn't know where he was. That's even a couple weeks.
But yeah, the officers in full uniform. Yes, ma'am. I was wearing a shirt that identified where I was from. But yes, we identified, and so did Special Agent Taylor Page did identify where he's from.
Okay, and she had indicated to you that she hadn't heard from him either, correct?
Correct.
Did she indicate to you that she had a good phone number for him?
No.
That she let you know that she didn't know how to get hold of him?
Right.
Looking on that same, there's this yellow line boxed around, and tell the jury what the, I guess, significance of those phone calls are.
This is at about 4:20 p.m. that same day. It was about 10 minutes after we spoke with Ms. Dykes on the phone over on Kensington. She has communication with who we later found out to be her wife, Nina Marano, at that 321-200-4328 number. And then at 4:26, a phone call was placed to Charles Beltran.
Okay. And did that call connect?
Yes.
And after that phone call with Mr. Beltran, do you see his phone number listed on any of the CDRs after that?
I don't believe so.
Okay, it appears that after that.
Okay, so they call Lisa. Lisa finds out that Chucky is wanted. She calls first Nina, and then Charles, and then Chucky ditches his phone. That's my interpretation of it. Now that tells me, okay, everybody in that household knows what's going on, and they are ditching stuff. Again, not until 16 days later do they go to the house with a search warrant. 16 days. But now we are into some interesting things here on what I believe Lisa can be involved with, and that is hiding evidence. For me, still, everything points to something happened between Chucky and Marisela, in my opinion.
Either they don't communicate on this particular phone, or don't communicate at all.
Correct.
Okay, you can't tell from the phone records.
I cannot, no, ma'am.
Okay. Now, additionally, looking at these call records, obviously, there are several phone calls made from this phone number during the first part of October. Did it appear that this phone number was kind of her primary phone call?
Yes, at the time, yes.
Okay. And then after this conversation that you and Special Agent Page had with her, were there just numerous, I guess, in comparison to before, were there numerous phone calls placed to that phone number for Nina Marano?
Yes.
I mean, lots of them.
It appeared so, yes.
Okay. At some point, did the phone calls originating from this phone number stop?
Yes.
And what did that indicate to you?
That the usage for the phone had largely stopped. I think it was about October 17th. I can take a look at the phone records that the phone was largely discontinued. I mean, there's some sporadic use on it for the rest of the duration of the warrant. As we stated earlier, the warrant only ran until about November 23rd. But after about October 17th, it was they largely stopped using that number.
Were you able to identify that she started using a different number?
Yes, ma'am.
And what number was that?
It was 214-364-6329, I believe.
Okay, and that was a phone number that prior to that had been a phone number, one of the phone numbers that Nina Marano had used.
Yes.
Okay. She also used the 312 phone number as well, correct?
Yeah, the 321-200 number, yes, ma'am.
Okay. So we're talking about people with multiple phones, multiple phone numbers.
Correct.
Now, Was there some point after, well, first of all, let me ask you, did you all think Ms. Dykes was being completely honest with you about her contact with Mr. Beltran?
At that time, on October 15th, when we knocked on the door, honestly, I had no opinion. I didn't know. I wasn't sure.
And was there anything about her demeanor on the phone that made you think, I don't know, that you had any opinion about?
Not really, no. At that time, I didn't really say, I was standing there with the conversation was going on, so I didn't speak to her directly, but I was standing right next to her, so I didn't get anything that was, that would say either way. I guess I can say it that way. I just didn't see anything that would say either way.
That's fair.
And that tells me, even on the 15th, nobody cared about Marisela. They only did this because the family made noise.
At some point, were you able to go out to her workplace and speak with some of her coworkers?
Yes, in November. Yes, ma'am.
In November. At some point, right around this time, were you all kind of, I guess, asked to pull back some of your investigation?
Yes. So on October 15th, after we spoke with Ms. Dykes, we had kind of completed the circle of looking for Charles Beltran to that point. Our superiors spoke with their superiors, and the decision was made that it was still a missing persons case at that time. We didn't have a federal nexus to work unless we were specifically invited. They wanted to move forward with the case as a missing persons. So we discontinued at that time on, I believe it was about October 16th, and turned over all of our information.
Okay. And you said that you had to be specifically invited back. Did that happen?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And how did that happen?
This is the best of my knowledge of some conversations the superiors had that I wasn't there for. The best of my knowledge is they being the missing persons unit, had executed a warrant at the residence at the end of October, had found that no one lived there any longer. It looks like it had been moved. They had found some things in the crime scene processing, and they had no movement on the case. For example, like they had not found any evidence of Marisela. They had not found any new phone records or social media use for her. She's not reported back into her family. So from my understanding at that time, they just requested our assistance again, just for the resources and the assistance to continue a larger scale investigation.
Okay. And resources, manpower, you all have access to different databases and things like that maybe missing persons unit doesn't?
In some cases, yes,
In
ma'am.
some cases,
Mhm.
okay. And what all did you do when you got back involved in the case?
I assisted with the interviews of coworkers at our place of work, and assisted in the interview of Kyle Williams. And during that time, that's when I wrote the search warrants for her phone records.
Okay. When you interviewed Kyle Williams, what information were you trying to find?
Just the whereabouts of Lisa Dykes, trying to better understand the relationship between her and Charles and Nina Marano, and just overall where we believe that they could be located.
Okay. Did he provide you with a cell phone number?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And were you able to locate her or get a hold of her at that point?
No, we're not able to locate her, no, ma'am.
Okay. Did you advise Kyle, let her know, hey, we just want to talk to her?
Yeah, we spoke with Kyle, said, hey, we're looking for her, and we left our information and said, for contact and stuff like that. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And were you all trying to contact her throughout this time as well?
I specifically wasn't. I don't know if anybody else on the investigation was or not. I specifically didn't call her.
And is there a reason why you might not just, when you get a new phone number, pick up the phone, call her, and say, hey, this is FBI, we're looking for you?
Previously, it was unsuccessful, and then from the interviews that we had in the both with Kyle and then with coworkers, they made statements to us that she had known we were looking for her and was not trying to contact us. And at that point in time, we were looking for her. We didn't want to lose the phone number. That would be the reason I wouldn't try to contact her. I can only testify to that.
Okay. And the coworkers that you're talking about, you talked to Rosemarie Olivia Martinez, almost over.
Yes, I am also streaming this over at X. So if you have my Twitter handle, Twitter is so this is my Twitter handle. So you can go over there, give me a follow, and like the stream over there. You can, I think you can even, here, as you see, you can comment on X. Yay! So I posted this. This is my Twitter handle, @StarofNiklas. And you can follow me over there, and you can watch the trial at this stream over at X as well.
Rodriguez, that's the famous pop star, Martinez. She gave you guys some information, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
She was actually in the room when you all contacted her, is that fair?
Yes.
Did she let you know how Ms. Dykes was acting after that phone call?
Did you object to hearsay?
Sustained.
Your Honor, I was asking her for how she was acting. I didn't ask for
It's still
her.
hearsay, is what she said.
Yes, but it's based on what, the witness, Ms. Rodriguez told him.
Were you able to talk to a couple other coworkers there as well?
Yes, we talked to multiple coworkers today.
And did you become aware that she had quit her job?
Yes.
Judge again, object to hearsay. Well, go ahead. I'll strike it, Judge. I was wrong.
You learned through your investigation that she had quit her job.
Yes, ma'am.
And that was right after you all contacted her. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you have any idea, I guess your investigation at that point had stopped until you were invited back in and had that nexus. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Were you able to, in your investigation, locate any areas that Ms. Dykes and Mr. Beltran might be?
No, originally, no. We had heard a couple different things that she made in Florida, but later on, we were able to obtain some records of border crossings in December. But from the conversations I had, I didn't get anything definitive.
Second, I'm handing you what's been marked States Exhibit 300. Is that a fair and accurate representation of the email and photographs of vehicles that you were a part of on the emails?
Yes, ma'am.
Your Honor, move to admit States Exhibit 300 for all purposes.
For 300 is a bid for all purposes.
This first page, this is an email from Charles Plaskett, and you're in this email chain up here. It's forwarded to you, Stephen Prince.
Mhm.
Sorry, up there on 12/23/2020, correct?
That is correct. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And it appears that there was a border crossing, Charles Anthony Beltran, 12/22/20, a crossing, and we have a license plate number,
Yes, ma'am.
crossed with Lisa Beltran.
Yes, ma'am.
And that's just a one-way crossing, is that correct?
So they left just before Christmas in the border crossing. So they stayed in the state until then. And nobody did actual effort to find them, I would assume.
Yes, ma'am.
What records are the FBI able to obtain as far as border crossings?
My understanding is the only ones that we can really obtain are the ones where they come into our country. So if they're crossing from Mexico into the United States.
Okay, so
Oh.
from Mexico to the United States, the Mexican government does not give us necessarily the records from U.S. to Mexico, correct?
No, they don't necessarily have to, no, ma'am.
And
Okay, so they went back to the United States from Mexico. Okay.
that border crossing, was it indicated in this email, and I think it's on the third page, where that border crossing occurred?
But yes, ma'am, in Nogales.
Nogales, where is that located?
I couldn't tell you specifically where that's located, ma'am. I just know it's on the border coming into the United States.
Okay, do you know if it's in Texas or if it's in?
I don't.
Okay, no problem. And then there was a photograph of this Jeep associated with that border crossing, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and then there was a second notification, that was on 12/23/2020, correct?
Yeah, so we got notified on 12/23. The crossing occurred on 12/22.
On 12/22,
Yes,
okay. And then on 12/4/2020, there was a crossing of this license plate number, a California plate, of an individual who crossed with Nina Marano, and
Yes.
of course, the same,
Yeah.
on 12/4/2020, correct?
Yes.
And what is that, what plate is that?
The plate right there is 8NYK735 or 8 Nora Yankee King 735, and it's a California plate.
Okay. Initially, it said Lisa Beltran,
Yes.
and this one says Lisa Ahmed.
Yes.
Do you, in your investigation, have you been able to understand and know that Lisa Ahmed is her, I guess, former married name?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, Lisa Dykes is her maiden name.
My understanding, yes. Yeah.
Okay, and then where does this Beltran come in?
I believe it was a name change that occurred as time went on after October of 2020.
And that was, were you aware in your investigation that she and Nina Marano had been legally married?
Yes,
Okay, and they have a marriage license from Pennsylvania. Wherever that ceremony took place, they had a marriage license from Pennsylvania, correct?
yes, ma'am.
And then at some point, they petitioned to have their name changed to last name to Beltran.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Is this the
Her name is maiden name Lisa Dykes. Married to a woman, so yeah. Yeah, I like this witness too. This is what I know.
vehicle that is indicated that Miss Marano and Miss Dykes crossed over in?
Yes, ma'am.
And that's from Mexico to the United States
That's correct.
on December 4th, 2020.
That's correct.
That also was the Nogales crossing.
That is correct.
You mentioned the search warrant that was conducted on October 31st, 2023. Were you out, I'm sorry, 2020, were you out there for that search warrant?
I was not.
Okay. Were you able, in your investigation, to locate some other addresses that were connected to Lisa Dykes in the Texas area?
Yes.
Okay, and what was one of those addresses?
I believe it was 274 Turning Tree down in the Wilma area. And then again, the Kensington address.
And did you, based on that search, I guess, what did that tell you? Did she used to live there? What was the importance of that address?
From an ID that she had, that was the address on the ID. And then from later conversations, we were able to find out that she had lived there.
You're saying go to later conversation.
In the furtherance of your investigation, were you able to learn about where she lived?
And again, that's back going to the regards to later conversation, where we talk.
Your Honor, we believe when it comes to law enforcement, they were able to testify about their
And
investigation.
ask the right
Things that they learned
officer.
in the course of their investigation. Well, leads.
I don't know where he's getting this information from. People who potentially have an opportunity to cross-examine to determine the accuracy of the information they're given. That's why it's here.
All right, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, we have been going for almost an hour and a half, so we'll go ahead and I'll send it back to the jury room and we can begin our morning break while we have a hearing on the break.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, he can't just testify to what he heard from somebody else. That should be testimony from that person. Is that groom drunken on the stand? No, that's Detective Stephen Prince, who works for the FBI.
We were just looking to see if anybody actually lived there that had to do with Lisa or
This is
Charles
out
or
of
eventually
the
Nina at the time
ears.
to see if anybody still lived there. We ran license plates at the address, see if anybody lived there. Recent research indicated that there was no longer her address based on where we basically knew where she lived in Kensington, and then just the research we'd done, and then checking the address, we didn't see any vehicles that tied to anybody at in the investigation at the time.
Okay, so the driver's license first, and then you from there kind of checked to see if any other individuals or if she lived there, any license plates in her in that 274 Turning Tree, if those came back to her. I guess if she had any connection with that house at that time, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
As far as the research is concerned, those were using tools, databases that are at availability to determine maybe where people might have lived in the past.
Yes, ma'am.
And then it wasn't until March that you spoke with Mr. Dykes. So other than the conversation with Mr. Dykes, all of your knowledge concerning 274 Turning Tree comes from your research into databases that are available to you for your investigation.
Yes, ma'am.
Your Honor, pass please.
Do you have any questions for our?
Yeah, but if he's using databases, I don't know what databases he's allegedly getting this information from. As far as her ID, if that's her ID, I don't have any, obviously I don't have any objections to that, but if he's saying he's talking to Mr. Dykes,
Which databases were you using?
Ma'am, it's been a few years. I generally use TLO, XP, and
What is that?
which it's an online investigative tool that we use for that collection of marketing information and other information about people and previous addresses.
and again, I don't know the accuracy of that.
Well, you didn't cross-examine him on the issue, what he did in the course of his investigation and learning from her ID that she lived at the location of Wilbur before to allow.
Yes, ma'am.
However, anything that Mr. Dykes told you,
Sure. Okay. Yes, ma'am.
okay, then we're at recess for the next few minutes. Great. Thank you.
Okay, so him doing the vague testimony is allowed. Let's skip ahead.
Might you maybe see that? Mr. Chapman, if you could please shut that door for us. Thank you. All right. Let's put in the-
Detective Prince, we were discussing the 274 Turning Tree address, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And you had told the jury that she had an ID that you were able to locate that had that address on there in Wilmer, Texas.
That's correct.
And what steps did you take in your investigation using the tools that you had to find out some information about that address?
Generally, we use online investigative tools that we will use to see if we can find addresses for individuals that are.
I'm going to take a screenshot. And tweet out that we have groomed Runkle on the stand. Groomed Ian Runkle on the stand. I didn't know you or your twin was a glowy, Ian. Yeah, I'm not letting Ian accidentally end your stream. And neither that I won't allow Sal to do it either. Yeah, we can't unsee it now. We have groomed Ian Runkle on the stand. Oh, I think Ian has old photos before all the hair. Let's see if I can find it. Oh. This is an old picture of Ian Runkle. Oh my God. Okay. Oh, it looks so tiny. Oh. And yep. I don't know how to do a split screen. Side by side. Hold on while I... Bum, bum, bum. Try here. Dun, dun, dun. Doing a fast paint side by side. Dun, dun, dun. And stop that. Present, share, window, share. Yep, that's groomed Ian or Ian's twin. Ian Runkle has a glowy twin. Oh, time traveler Runkle. Oh, this is so fun. Yeah, but let's keep on with the trial.
Available to us. We just checked those to see if there's anything updated regarding that address. And then we just did physical surveillance on the address to see if anybody or anything that we knew to be related to our individuals was currently coming back to the address. And we didn't have any good results of that.
Okay, so in your initial search and in your investigative tools, were you able to determine that she had possibly lived there before?
Yes.
Okay. You said that you did surveillance in that area, and were you looking for people associated with this investigation, people that you're looking for? Were you trying to determine if they ever went to that location?
Yeah, that's what I was trying to determine. Even if we could just locate any vehicles or individuals there that were associated to anybody we knew at the time.
And you weren't able to locate anything for Lisa Dykes, Charles Beltran, or Nina Marano at that time in 2020 associated with that residence?
I was not.
Okay, but you were able to determine that she may have lived there previously.
Yes.
Glowy off the Bailey.
Now, you later in the case were kind of on a team, I guess, of detectives, including with Christina Ramirez and another detective, and went out to Florida, to Miami. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And I guess, how did you all determine that you needed to go to that area?
Based on some phone records that they had pulled, I believe, I wasn't part of that initial determination. I was just asked to go. So I couldn't even testify to the phone records. It was just based on their investigation that they had. They believed that they were in Florida at the time. I knew they had family in Florida. That's basically the extent of what I knew at the time.
And were you aware at that time that Detective Ramirez had obtained an arrest warrant for Ms. Dykes, Ms. Marano, and Mr. Beltran?
Yes.
Okay. Did you all contact the Florida Department of Law Enforcement?
She did, yeah. Sorry, yes, ma'am.
Okay, and you all met with them?
Yes.
Okay. After meeting with them in Miami, did you travel to the Orlando area?
Yes.
Okay. In Miami, you became aware that Ms. Marano was arrested in an address there, is that correct?
That's correct.
Were you all able, through your investigation and in conjunction with FDLE, were you all able to determine that you needed to then travel to the Orlando area?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. As part of the investigation, were you able to develop, I guess, an address for Jimmy Dykes?
Yes.
And who is Jimmy Dykes?
Lisa Dykes' brother.
Were you able to contact Mr. Dykes?
We were.
And was that at his home in Davenport, Florida?
Yes.
And I think you all spoke with him one evening, is that correct?
That is correct, yes, ma'am.
And did he give you consent at that time to look through a Hyundai Tucson?
Yes.
And how was that Tucson possibly related to this case?
Well, we believe that was a vehicle that Lisa had been driving, Ms. Dykes had been driving during the time frame of an investigation so far.
Okay, this is States 293. Is that a photograph of the Tucson that you all saw in Mr. Dykes' drive?
Yes.
And that's the same Tucson that was associated with this case, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
You all received consent from Mr. Dykes to search through that car and just get anything out of it that you thought might be related to this case, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Understanding that Ms. Botello's disappearance occurred on October 5th of 2020, and this is now March 25th, I believe, of 2021, is that correct?
That's around that time, yes, ma'am.
Okay. Were any of the things that were located in that vehicle, what types of items, if you recall, were located in that vehicle?
I don't recall, ma'am.
Okay. If you don't recall, it appeared that there was just nothing of significance.
Yeah, not that I remember, no, ma'am.
Okay, just normal things that would be in a person's vehicle.
From my memory, yes.
Did you later become aware that Lisa Dykes was arrested in Orlando?
Yes.
Were you there when she was arrested?
No.
As far as the investigation up to this point, were you involved in any other aspect of it?
I wrote the Ring search warrant up to that point. We wrote a Google search warrant up to that point, and then we were just there for any assistance capacity at that time.
I do want to ask you about, first of all, the Ring search warrant. When you wrote that warrant, were there specific dates that you wrote that warrant for?
Yes, I don't recall them, but I have to look at the warrant, but there were specific dates on there.
Would it be consistent with the dates of the CDR, like October 1st through November?
Yes.
And what things were you hoping to find out that Ring video possible?
The arrival or the departure of Marisela, first of all, or anybody who actually lived at the residence.
And you're aware of the layout of the house, correct? You were out there?
Oh, yeah, I never went in, so I don't know particularly about the inside of the house. I just know what the front of the house looks like.
Okay, and you're aware that to get into the garage area, you have to drive down the alleyway?
Yes, I did see the alleyway.
Okay, the Ring camera would not have caught any activity going into the garage?
Not the Ring camera, we got no man.
Okay, and
Why
return, I think there were
all of these extra questions?
little snips of Ring video. Were you able to go through some of those?
Yes, ma'am.
Were you able to go through all of them?
No.
Okay. Was there anything that you went through of any importance or significance concerning this case?
No, I didn't see. We were specifically looking for Marisela at the time to see if she had come in, and I did not see anything having to do with that.
As far as the Google search warrant, what information can you obtain from a Google search warrant?
You can previous emails. If your location information is on, it'll hold on to that. Contacts and things like that.
Okay. And you specifically mentioned the location detail that's on. What does that mean? Let the jury know what that means.
In some cases, if you have your locations on your device, specifically Android, but it can be any device, I guess, that it'll record your location information if you allow your phone to. You can manipulate that data later on. You can delete it if you want to, keep it if you want to, but it's just something that they hold in your Google account, available for a later time.
Okay, so you said easily manipulated it. And for example, like if I want to use Google Maps to go to the Galleria Mall, find the best route there. Generally, does your phone ask you allow Google locations to access?
Yes, it can.
And that will record that information in the Google location, correct?
Based on the settings in your phone, yes, ma'am.
Okay. And if you turn those off, then those locations won't be recorded.
In many cases, yeah, that's correct.
You can also go into Google pretty easily and delete all that information as well.
Yes.
Okay. When you got that Google return, as far as the location data, was there any location data to use?
Not that I could find, no, ma'am.
Okay. Was there anything of significance related to this case, either related to the Audi or the Tucson or anything else in that Google return that was significant?
One of the things that was found was the transport from, I believe it was Freedom Transport of the Audi from Mesquite up to Pennsylvania. Is that invoiced?
Now, as far as the investigation up to the arrest, is that, pretty much your knowledge and understanding of the investigation as it relates to you and the FBI task force?
Yes, ma'am.
Is there anything else you can think of relevant that we have not discussed?
Not that I recall at this time, ma'am.
Now, you were aware that when Ms. Marano and Dykes were arrested, eventually they were transported to Dallas.
Yes, ma'am.
And they were released on bond.
Yes.
Did you become aware that they had tampered with or cut off or somehow their electronic leg monitor device had just gone dead?
Yes.
And were you a part of the team that helped locate them after that incident occurred?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and what steps did you take in that?
We had identified some new phone numbers that related to Ms. Dykes and then to the two people she was staying with, Kyle and Valerie, and we did some research on her phone numbers, wrote a couple of warrants to see if we could find anything that would be pertinent to the investigation. That was largely my role, and then I assisted in assisting in the return of them to Dallas.
Okay, and those initial warrants, those were mostly your role. Was there any good information that came out of those warrants?
Not that I recall, no.
Okay. And in fact, Special Agent Taylor Page, did he kind of head up that for the FBI?
Yeah, he was one of the people, yes, ma'am.
Okay, so he would be able to testify more about the steps they took to locate.
He would. Yeah.
Your Honor, pass the witness.
Just before I forget, you're saying that you had information that Ms. Dykes' ID referred to that address as Will?
Yes, sir.
Didn't it true you also found information that in November of 20, that her son Kyle that vehicle also registered to the same address, correct?
Yes, sir. That's true, actually.
But let me move forward. I want to ask you specifically about these arrest warrants and these search warrants. You talked about getting search warrants, I guess, for the Ring and search warrants for the Google. When you obtain these arrest warrants and search warrants, that's all information that y'all, I mean, it's not just a document you just print out and you give to a business. You have to get permission from a judge, right?
That's correct, sir.
You actually swear out information that's included within the four corners of that document that information is truly correct. And you ask the judge to give you permission to obtain whatever information you want, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. As far as the arrest warrant for Ms. Dykes, did you handle that?
No, sir.
That was Christine Ramirez, Detective Christine Ramirez, correct?
Yes, sir.
She swore out information in an arrest warrant that led to the arrest of Lisa Dykes, correct?
That is correct.
And to your knowledge, that information should have been correct and true, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. Let me ask you about the I want to go back to the video and when
think
Charles
he's
Beltran was a person of interest.
very
At that
scattered.
time, when you initially talked to Ms. Dykes, she's not a person of interest, is she?
No, sir.
Y'all looking for Charles Beltran, right?
That's correct.
The only reason you're even at her house is because phone records led you back to that house.
Yes, sir.
And the Audi was in her name and Charles's name.
That's correct. Yes,
But
sir.
she is not a person of interest, was
At that time,
at
no.
that time,
That's
correct?
That's correct.
You talked about when we were watching the video, you said that Marisela and Chuck or Charles did not appear intoxicated to you, correct?
From what it appeared, I don't know about intoxicated, sir. It's hard to tell if someone's intoxicated. They didn't appear inebriated to the point where they didn't have control of their faculties. I guess would be a better statement.
But as far as what controlled substances or drinking they may have done at that time when they're on video, you have no idea, correct?
That is correct.
Especially what they did subsequent to being on that video, do you?
That's correct, sir.
You don't know what controlled substance he had in his vehicle, do you?
I don't.
You don't know what alcohol he had in his vehicle, do you?
I don't.
You have no idea what their state of being was after they no longer appear on that video, correct?
That's correct.
I do my best.
So in regards to whether he gave her ecstasy, you have no idea, right?
That is correct, sir.
In regards to whether she was under the influence of Percocet, you have no idea, correct?
That's correct, sir.
But you did have reports that at some point Chuck was a drug dealer.
I'm sorry, what, sir?
Did you ever have reports in regards to Chuck or Charles Beltran dealing with drugs,
I know you've been associated with drugs before, yes, sir.
especially ecstasy?
Sir,
Just you remember.
I just don't remember. I'm sorry.
Okay. I wanted to ask you about it. You said at some point you guys were helping out with the missing persons, following all the leads that you guys had, but then y'all discontinued it because there was no nexus, no federal nexus to continue the investigation, right?
That's correct, sir.
Okay. When you say no federal nexus, means there's no evidence that there's anything but a missing person at that time, right?
At the time, yes, that's what we were informed by the missing persons unit. So we didn't have anything else, so we were discontinued from the investigation.
Hey. Jingles arrived. Hey, Rosman. The defense doesn't really have a clear line of what they are trying to cross-examine him about. So I'm not sure what use.
As far as Florida is concerned, you have no idea why Ms. Dyson went to Florida, right?
I don't know, sir.
You just know that they moved to Florida.
Yes.
All right. I did want to ask you about, because y'all were surveilling or canvassing that deep element area, looking for potential witnesses that may be able to help you locate Ms. Marisela, correct?
That's correct, sir.
Were you involved when they went to the Reno Cycle Bar?
Yes, sir.
All right, and at that bar, y'all had information of a patron that told y'all that they thought they saw her, correct?
Yeah, they saw someone who looked like her. Yes, sir.
All right. Why didn't y'all get that picture of that?
I don't know, sir. I didn't interview the witness.
I mean, you got someone who's saying that they potentially saw this missing person, and their name wasn't Y'all didn't record the name, right?
I did not. I never spoke to her.
But someone spoke to a patron that said that they saw someone that they believe was this missing person on in the evening of October 5th,
That's correct, sir.
around 8:39?
Yes, sir. That's correct.
They didn't write
And they
down
were
the
certain enough
name,
that
the
whoever
name
was out
because
there,
they didn't
y'all actually tried
care.
to look at the video to confirm whether or not the person was in fact Marisela, correct? But the video, you really couldn't tell whether it was or not, right?
That is correct.
And do we have that video?
We made it available to the missing persons unit. Yes, sir.
You made it available to DPD?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Okay, so where is it now?
So it's safe to say that this patron
Ow!
who says that they saw Marisela, there was a video. I'm trying to think of how to phrase this. The video didn't rule out that it was Marisela. You just couldn't tell from the video, correct?
That's correct. Yes, sir.
But the patron was certain enough that they wanted to bring it to your attention that they saw her on the evening about 8:39 at the Reno sidewalk.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Now, the people that we've been talking, would those people have had body cams on?
No, sir.
Again, probably nothing because people see people
Do you even know
everywhere.
if the witness was a man or a woman?
I don't recall, sir.
For fuck's sake. Oh. Hey, it took almost 2 hours before the first one. I'm proud of myself. Hey, Mrs. Kigriff. Welcome back.
I did want to also ask you just real quickly in reference to the garage. I think the state indicated to you that it was that you entered through the alleyway, correct?
You can enter the garage through the alleyway. Yes, sir.
Okay. And we're talking about the house in Mesquite that belonged to Ms. Dykes.
Yes, sir. The Kensington address. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Detective.
Thanks, sir.
May this witness be fine with you,
Yes, Your Honor.
unless you have any redirect?
Actually, just a couple questions about the Reno's. We had discussed the Reno's video previously, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And the reason you all went out there is that you had a tip from someone. Is that correct?
Yes.
Did you ever speak to that person
No, I was not.
personally? Do you know when you went out there, you were with Special Agent Taylor Page?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you see him? Was anybody out there to speak to him?
To the witness,
Yes, I say him, to the witness.
the task force officer Randy Logan originally spoke to the witness, but that was, I believe, the day before. So no, I never spoke to the witness on the day that we went to try to retrieve the video.
Okay, as far as the individual that was in that video, it was not high enough quality to determine it was Mariselas.
Yeah, we couldn't tell either way. No, ma'am.
Okay, but could you tell if that person had on a purple dress?
It didn't appear that she did. No.
Now,
The fuck? If it was the next day, why would she wear the same dress? Few women, to my best knowledge, and I'm with one. I have 4 sisters. I meet women in my line of work. Few, if anyone, used the same dress going out 2 days in a row. In my opinion. Maybe you girls and women in the chat can say otherwise. For fuck's...
in these missing persons investigations, is it your understanding that, I mean, when they ask for tips, people call in, correct?
Yes.
And some of those tips, many of those tips lead to nothing.
From my understanding.
Okay, and in this case, you all are out there, I think on October 12th, and so this is about a week since she's been missing, correct?
That is correct.
And still there's been no activity on her cell phone, social media, anything of that nature?
Correct.
No purchases, anything?
Correct.
That's what it's around.
Again, it's a week since she's been missing, right?
Yes, sir.
And you guys, there are posters. The families come in, they got Marisela's picture posted up everywhere. Well, not everywhere, but people are looking for this lady.
That's true.
If someone comes to you guys and says, hey, I saw her on October the 5th at about 8:30, a day after she goes missing, right?
Yes, sir.
But she went missing the early morning hours of the 4th, right?
The 5th, yes, sir.
Of the 5th, I'm sorry.
That's right, yes, sir.
And so the 8:30 will be the next day.
Yeah, effectively later on that night, yes, sir.
Whether Marisela changed clothes, you have no idea, correct?
That's correct.
But you do know that someone cared enough to say, hey, I think I saw her.
Yes, sir.
And they were certain enough that you guys took another step to start reviewing videos to try to see if this is the person. Is this Marisela, the person we're looking for, right?
That's correct.
And you couldn't tell whether it was or what.
That's correct.
So we continue the investigation, correct?
That is correct.
But you can't say that was not Marisela at the Reno Cycle Bar at 8:39 on October 15th.
We could not tell either way, no, sir.
And they never wrote down the name of that witness.
Thank you, Detective Spence.
Thank you, sir.
No other questions, Your Honor?
May this witness be found excused?
No objection, Your
No
Honor.
objection.
Thank you, sir. You're free to go about your business. Please watch your step and count the witness.
Thank you, Your Honor.
And is that your warrant?
Yes, ma'am. I'll take it.
Thank you. Call your next witness.
State calls Mark Sedgwick.
It was a good witness, but the prosecution tried to get a lot more out of him than he had to say. Next witness.
Sir, if you would please stop and raise your right hand. You solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony
Please
you're about
have
to give
something
is the truth,
useful.
the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Please.
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you. You may be seated. You may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Sir, can you state your name and spell your name for the court?
Mark Sedgwick, last name is spelled Sedwick.
And can you just kind of introduce yourself to the jury and tell them what it is that you do for a living?
I'm a special agent with the Federal Bureau of Investigation out of the Dallas office.
And what are your duties as a special agent?
Currently, I'm a member of the CAS team, which is the Cellular Analysis Survey Team.
What do you do for the CAS?
What the CAS team is a group of specially trained agents and task force officers who have been certified as experts in the analysis of historical call detail records, or CDRs.
How do you get certified to be a member of that team?
It's a process, can take a
You mentioned already what the CAS team is as a member, and we talked about kind of what your duties are, responsibilities as a member of the CAS team. Can you explain to the jury what historical call detail record analysis or historical cell site analysis is?
What that is a CDR is basically your phone bill. It has the date and time a call or text was made, the two numbers involved, incoming, outgoing, the length of the call. But it also has the cell tower and sector or side of the cell tower that was utilized when that call was made. Based on those records and knowing where the other towers.
Okay, this can be useful if they can pinpoint roughly where Lisa was, where Chucky was Nina, where Nina was around the time of the 5th, and especially what I really want to know, during the week and a half leading up to the 15th, where was Chuck calling from? That I want to know. No rappers around? Not yet, but I do know that Chuck will testify in this trial. But this, please have something interesting.
That were in existence at the time for that network I can determine the approximate location that device that made that call was based on those records.
And you mentioned before about your training. What is your educational background that allows you to do this?
I have a Bachelor of Science in History from the United States Naval Academy.
And then tell the jury again, just remind the jury what the training is that you have regarding the historical call detail analysis.
As I stated, from those, from other agents, from outside agencies on how RF works, from the engineers, and we have a yearly recertification that's about a week long, where we bring in the engineers, other people in the cellular network, or just Google, companies like that, to discuss with them the evolution of the cellular networks.
What makes you an expert in historical call detail record analysis?
The three main things that make me an expert is, one, detailed knowledge of how to actually read the CDRs. Every company presents the same information slightly differently. Secondly is knowing how the phone interacts with the network and how the network operates. But third, most importantly, is real-world experience in using these records to locate people. When there's an Amber Alert, cast member, or myself or the other cast member in Dallas, or both of us will usually respond.
Oh, I have to thank you for the donation to GG via my PayPal. I know this is the name is not the same as your YouTube handle or your Rumble handle, but thank you so much. I will make sure she gets it at the end of the week, where I will show all the receipts. Thank you so much. And for you who are new here, Gigi is my first and best moderator. She has been with me my entire run. And she got ill about a month and a half ago. And that, as you well know, in the United States, your economy gets fucked. So I know about her bills, and I know about what predicament she is in. So during this trial, this week, everything that comes through PayPal, my PayPal, I will send over to her. And so she can pay some bills and have a decent Christmas. So that, and my PayPal is pinned on the top of the chat on YouTube, if you also want to make a contribution to Gigi, my first and best moderator. Thank you so much. And thank you for, I know your name, since it's not your YouTube handle, I will not reveal your name. Thank you so much.
To provide that assistance to utilize the phones to locate those kidnapped victims. I've used records to locate fugitives, missing persons, find homicide victims, stuff like that.
And have you testified as an expert in this field before?
Yes, ma'am.
A few times or many times?
Over 100 times in both state and federal court.
Now, were you asked to review cell phone records of a phone that was subscribed to a Lisa Dykes?
Yes, ma'am. I was actually asked to look at the total of 4 phones in this case.
Okay, and who were the phones
for the phones, I was told, were associated with the first number.
No, I do not have Cash App. Sorry. I use Cash App is a mostly American thing, and PayPal is worldwide, so that's why I use PayPal.
It was 407-406-3757. That was associated with Miss Lisa Dykes. 214-364-6329 with a Nina Marano, and 214-600-0181 with a Charles Beltran. And then the final number was 206-229-2273, associated with Marisela Botello.
And what all did you review when conducting your analysis?
In this case, I was provided the records for all 4 phones. 3 of those phones were AT&T, 1 was T-Mobile. So I received the call detail records. I also, with the T-Mobile phone, received time in advance records, which I'll go into a little detail later. And then I was provided 5 locations of interest and a time frame. So what I do is then I take those records, map their usage to show where the approximate location of the device is when certain activity occurred in the pertinent time frame.
And with the AT&T records, were you also able to obtain the time on tower records?
Yes, ma'am. AT&T, they provide the calls, text, and the data sessions, which is, you're using an app or surfing the net in the records. AT&T, we used to not be able to use the data records because there was an issue with the time. We couldn't say exactly if the time was correct. So AT&T now has a report that now it comes automatically, but they refer to it as time on tower, which basically gives the time the device use the cell tower was on, or before it switched to another tower if it's a longer data session. But now with that data, having that information, I can use the data sessions as accurately now.
Were you able to use these records that you obtained to determine general locations for these devices?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and it was, the records that you reviewed were for kind of a limited time frame. That was the 1st of October through when?
Mid-November. Some of the records ended before then, but about 2 months max of records, probably.
And a new donation came in, and I assume Mrs. K. Griff is the one who figured it out. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I will make sure by the end of the week, which will be tomorrow evening, my time, and I will present all the receipts so you all can see this is what came in and this is what I sent. Oh, it wasn't you. Okay, then thank you, the other one. Okay, so that wasn't you. Okay. Thank you. And this is a name that it's not the same as your YouTube handle, but thank you so much. And as I said, I will make sure Gigi gets it. And this will be tomorrow evening, my time. And I will send everything over and I will show all the receipts. Thank you so much.
A month and a half or less of records.
Did you create a report or a PowerPoint presentation based on your analysis?
Yes, ma'am. The PowerPoint presentation includes my report.
Okay. Your Honor, may I first witness?
You may.
Thank you, Sedgwick. I'm handing you what's been marked States Exhibit 301. That appears to be a very accurate copy of your presentation.
It is a note with it, but it says a female name that isn't something I recognize from a YouTube handle. And yep. Thank you. So far today, 2 donations, one male and one female name that doesn't. Oh, there. Thank you so much. Hi, Nick. I'm new here. I don't have much. I'm on disability here in UK. However, despite being told today I need a 27th surgery, I want to go bankrupt because of it. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And all the hopes and wishes that everything goes well with you. I truly, honestly hope everything goes well with you. Did you send one earlier? Oh, yeah. Yeah, that one. Yeah. I already thanked for that one, I think. But I'm not in the business of doxing people. So unless you supply me with your YouTube handle in the comment section, I will not say the name that's actually on the receipt. But thank you so much. Ow! For fuck.
Yes, ma'am.
Your Honor, State Opera States 301 for all purposes.
Jingles is here again.
It is 16.
Thank you.
Dinner fitments.
Objection, judge been previously suspended.
All right, States Exhibit 301 is admitted for all purposes.
Commissioner Beltran, Your Honor.
You may.
Now, this is your PowerPoint presentation, and on the first slide, this indicates the 4 phone numbers in different, different colors. Is that helpful for the jury to kind of later determine which phone is what in the presentation?
Yes, ma'am. Each number will be color-coded and will remain that color throughout the presentation just to differentiate if I'm showing multiple phones at the same time. Just helps differentiate which device is which.
Okay, and in this case, the blue cell phone number that is related to Lisa Dykes, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am. And I just want to make it clear when I'm talking about the location, I'm talking about a device itself. I can't say who was carrying any of these devices at any time or what was said in a call or a text. I'm just talking about the device itself.
Okay, and then the black number, that device was associated with Nina Marano?
Yes, ma'am.
The red number was associated with Charles Beltran?
Yes, ma'am.
And then the green number was associated with Marisela Botello?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, can you explain to the jury what slide 2 is concerning?
Basically, this is my written report. The background, I took the 4 phones. I was asked by the Dallas office of the FBI, in this case, to analyze the 4 phones for a homicide that occurred on around October 4th or 5th of 2020. So what I do, the methodology is I take the call detail records and I take the contemporaneous tower lists in existence at the time. Obviously, this happened back in 2020, so I want to use the towers in existence 2020, not now. I plot all those towers on the map, and then I will take the usage that's in the CDRs and the other reports I get, plot that usage, and show the locations of the phones along with any pertinent addresses during the pertinent timeframes.
Here, could you dim the lights to the jury from seeing? Now, can you talk about the jury? I guess, how does a cell phone work?
The way a cell phone works is for a CDR, when the phone's just sitting in your pocket and you're not actively using it, it's going to look for the strongest signal with the least amount of interference, generally the closest tower. AT&T phones are going to look for AT&T towers. T-Mobile phones are going to look for T-Mobile towers. And once the phone itself identifies a tower and sector it sees best, it'll do what we refer to as camp on it. There's a camp on it. And when the phone is camping on a tower, every tower and sector is continually broadcasting a signal for the phones to look for. That signal also sends some information. It gives what we refer to as a neighbor list. So it gives the other towers and sectors in the area. So if once you're in a call or in a data session and there needs to be a handoff as you move, or the network decides to hand you off, it's smooth. So that information is happening, but when you hit send on your phone, the tower that you're camped on is what is reflected in the call detail.
Thank you so much, Mrs. K. Griff. Thank you so much. And yeah, I can understand it's you. There's something in there that tells me it's you. Thank you so much for your donation. And I will make sure everything is sent over to the GG tomorrow. Scott McKinney says, this is interesting. The state of Texas prosecutor is producing FBI testimony as opposed to the states of Massachusetts being investigated by the FBI in the Karen Reed case. Yeah, isn't that interesting? How easy it is to get help from the FBI. Isn't it marvelous how easy it is to get the accurate cell phone data, somewhat accurate cell phone data, time, place, everything. But in the Karen Reed case, it seems almost impossible. Isn't that strange? Just as in the Zachariah Anderson case, they proved that Zach was nowhere near, or should have proven. And the timelines doesn't, but yeah.
Records, or if you start a data session or whatever, the phone chooses the tower. For an incoming call or text, the network doesn't keep track of what tower you're camped on. It just knows the general area you're in.
I agree.
So it'll send a page across all the towers in that area. You'll respond. Again, the phone choosing the tower and sector it sees the best at that time. In this case, for the T-Mobile number, I also had what's referred to as time in advance records. Time in advance occurs in the background of the network. It's just your phone being on generates this time in advance data. Time in advance does not have to be the strongest tower. It can just be a tower that the phone gets a signal from, and that is so the network is optimized. The timing in microseconds is very important, so you have smooth transitions. So that's why this exists. The time in advance records gives me not only the tower and sector, but an approximate distance that the device was from that tower at that time. So what I can say is the device was within an arc or closer to the base of the tower based on the time in advance, because it's computed straight line of vacuum, the speed of light. Obviously, sometimes the signal gets reflected or goes around an obstacle, so it sometimes can be a little long. But what I can say with time in advance is the device had to be within kind of the arc or closer to the tower.
And what is a cell tower?
Basically, cell towers you see on this slide, you have on the left, you see general, like an overhead view, and then a side view of a general 3-sector cell tower in the United States. You can see there are 3 distinct sets of antennas. In the records, what I'm given is I'm given the tower and the sector. and then I'm given the orientation or azimuth that the center of that sector is pointed at. So if I'm given an azimuth of 60 degrees, that tower will cover approximately from 0 degrees to 120 degrees, or on a clock face, 12 o'clock to 4 o'clock. And they can be oriented in any direction needed by the engineers when they build the network. It could be 60, 120, 240, it could be 0, 120, 240, it could be however the engineers decide to set up the network.
And can you just explain this slide?
Yes, this is how I'm going to display the approximate coverage area of the towers. On the left, this is just for a call or a text or a data session. I have this, in this case, it's oriented at 0 degrees, 12 o'clock. So I have those two sector arms kind of going out, showing the 60 degrees to either side. And that shaded area is just to show how the energy goes out in an upside down funnel shape, or kind of an upside down funnel. But that shaded area is not inclusive of the entire coverage area. It's based on the other towers in the area. On the right, that's kind of how I'll show the time in advance. I have the same sector arms, the shaded area, but then I have kind of that arc or hot dog, whatever you want to refer to it, showing that distance. And there is it's not a solid line, there's a gap, because the signal can travel a certain distance in the time between it can even be measured. So that's reflected in that width of that arc.
And can you kind of explain this slide?
Yes, this is basically showing the 4 phones, the blue phone ending in 3757 associated with Ms. Dykes, and the other 3 phones. And then I was also provided 5 locations. The first was 3900 Post Oak Road in Wilmer, Texas, which is a red flag, where the victim's body was located. I was provided 3113 Kensington Drive in Mesquite as the residence, and that is a yellow flag with kind of a house in it. A bar, 2700 Elm Street in Dallas, Texas, with a green flag. A 7-Eleven, 4104 Gaston Avenue in Dallas, Texas, with a purple flag. And then a Take 5 oil change, 4004 Lemon.
This is probably one of the best explanations I've heard from a cell tower guy. How he produces all of these are the phones, these are the locations, make it easy to explain to the jury and to us. This is good.
Avenue in Dallas, Texas, with a blue flag.
Can you determine location of a cell phone by cell sites?
Yes, ma'am.
And how can you do that?
I take basically the CDRs and I plot the usage. So in this case, I started on October 4th, and this shows between 6:46 p.m. on October 4th to October 5th, 2020 at 11:56 a.m. And basically what this shows is the 2 phones, the phone associated with Ms. Dykes and the phone associated with Ms. Beltran, or excuse me, Ms. Marano, were utilizing towers and sectors that have a coverage area that includes their residence. I can't say the devices were at the residence, they're somewhere within that coverage area, but the 3 towers that were used here show the coverage area being, that coverage area includes the residence. I don't think I stated it, but there is an overlap between sectors, there's an overlap between towers, because the network doesn't want a hard line where one tower ends and another one begins, because you'd have drop calls. So there's a overlap area, and this is kind of the classic example of that overlap area. But what I can say is between 6:46 p.m. and 11:56 a.m., the 2 devices were utilizing towers and sectors that have coverage area that includes their residents.
And what is this slide?
This is for the phone associated with Mr. Beltran, and this is October 4th from 9:27 to 10 p.m. And the same thing, it's utilizing towers and sectors that has a coverage area that includes the residents.
Okay, the next slide.
Now we're just continuing on to, we've kind of jumped ahead in time to October 5th, 12:42 to 12:55 a.m. And what this shows is you can see the time in advance arcs and the usage of the towers by Mr. Beltran, the device associated with Mr. Beltran, but it puts them in basically the deep elm area near the bar.
And so that is both Charles Beltran, and then the green is associated with Mariselas.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, that's between 12:42 a.m. and 12:55 a.m. on October 5th.
Yes, ma'am.
And can you tell the jury about the slide?
This is just 12:57 to 1:23 a.m. And the same thing, the arcs are kind of intercepting around the bar. And the only activity for the phone associated with Mr. Beltran is 2 outgoing SMSs at 12:57. And his is moved a little off to the east, but it's still in the deep elm area.
And that's up until 1:23 a.m. on October 5th, 2020, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And this next slide?
This next slide shows basically between 1:26 and 1:36 a.m. The time advance data for Ms. Botello's phone shows her being in the vicinity of the 7-Eleven. You kind of have those intersecting arcs. When I'm looking for like a missing person or a fugitive and I get those intersecting arcs, it kind of gives me a place to start if they're obviously very close in time. And then it also shows that the device associated with Mr. Botello, or Mr. Beltran, is utilizing tower and sector that covers the same area. So both devices are in the vicinity of the 7-Eleven in this 10-minute time frame.
And can you explain to the jury this slide?
Basically, from 1:38 to 1:43 a.m., it shows the device associated with Ms. Botello starting to move east away from the Deep Ellum in the 7-Eleven area. There's no activity for the phone associated with Mr. Beltran during this 5-minute time frame.
Okay. And this next slide?
This is from October 5th from 1:50 a.m. to 8:09 a.m. And what I have is time in advance data for Ms. Botello's phone arcing and kind of intersecting over the residence. So it's in the vicinity of the residence. And the phone associated with Mr. Beltran is back using that same tower it was late evening on the 5th, the 4th, but also using a tower that has a coverage area that includes the crime scene, the residence.
Okay. And so that is consistent with both phones and devices being in that area?
Yes, ma'am.
And that is until 8:09 a.m. in the morning, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am. And then the last activity on the phone associated with Mrs. Botello is at 8:09 a.m. After that, there's no more activity with tower. So the phone could have been turned off, ran out of battery. I can't say what happened, but there was no longer any data with tower information after 8:09 a.m.
And as far as data is concerned with phones, are there instances where a phone may connect to a cell tower for data purpose that's not, I guess, instigated by the user?
Yes, ma'am. With time in advance, it's happening in the background. Like a data session, you don't have to be actually doing something. You might have something where you get an automatic update, like ESPN sends you a push and automatically opens up, or you just have a map or something running in the background and you just have a constant data session running. You don't have to be manipulating the phone for those data sessions to occur.
And next slide.
So
Explain to the jury what this one is.
So now we're 8:29 to 9:59 a.m. So about 20 minutes later, the phone associated with Ms. Botello has moved away from the residence. It moves into the area at 8:55, utilizing a tower that has a coverage area that includes the Take 5 oil change. And then there's no activity for about 50 minutes, give or take. And at 8:44, it's utilizing the tower north of the Take 5, and then it moves, and then at 9:59, so 15 minutes later, it's moved a little west. But it left the area of the residence, got to the area around the Take 5 oil change around 8:55 a.m.
Okay, and I believe, I think you said Mr. Botello.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Beltran's phone. I apologize.
Okay, so this is Mr. Beltran's phone between 8:29 a.m. and 9:59 a.m. on October 5th, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and this next slide.
We've now jumped ahead to the evening of October 5th, between 6:36 p.m. and 7:38 p.m. And what this shows is there's only one data session for the phone associated with Ms. Marano, but the phone associated with Ms. Dykes has several data sessions, putting the phone kind of in the Wilmer area. And as you can see, now we're out of downtown Dallas. The towers are starting to get.
Okay, this is my interpretation that Miss Botello, her phone pings in the area where the house is. Then her phone stops working early morning. Turned off, battery ended, we don't know. Then we see Mr. Beltran, Chucky, driving somewhere. And then in the evening we see Miss Dykes going somewhere in the Wilmer area where Miss Botello's body is found 6 months later. Whew. This is good evidence. It doesn't say anything about who did what, but it indicates that everybody involved at this time, one person may or may not be. All we know is that her phone activity stops. And that she 6 months later is found in the area where Miss Dykes' phone is pinged on the evening of the 5th.
Farther apart, and that's just basically the more people, the more towers you need to provide that good coverage. So when you get to more rural areas, towers get spread out. But this is consistent also with both those devices being in the Wilmer, Texas area.
And let's look at the last slide.
This is basically the same time frame, 6:27 to 7:31 p.m. So generally the same time frame, showing the device associated with Mr. Beltran is kind of in Dallas and north of Dallas during that time frame. So could not have been in the Wilmer, Texas area at this time.
My interpretation, this is biased, but for me, it looks more like Miss Dykes is covering up for what Mr. Beltran did. This is what it looks to me. If you have another opinion, please say so, but this is my opinion.
Now, you read a report associated with this. You mentioned that was slide 2, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I asked you a few other questions. This phone kind of highlights certain timeframes and areas that were significant during the investigation. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And I noticed in the report you had, I guess, plotted some information about Charles Beltran from October 5th, 8:29 a.m. to 9:59 a.m. And then the next slide, it goes to October 5th between 6:36 p.m. and 6:38 p.m. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, was there still some activity on those phones between those time periods?
Yes, ma'am. I just didn't kind of show it because they're just kind of, all three phones were just kind of moving around the area, but they weren't going to any of the pertinent locations or pertinent times. So instead of having a bunch of slides that really don't show anything of importance, I just jumped ahead in time.
Okay. And if you can recall, the cell phones, those locations, and especially related to the cell phone of Charles Beltran and the cell phones of Nina Marano and Lisa Dykes, were those cell phones, did those cell phones appear to be traveling in the same areas, or were they in different areas?
They were in different areas, ma'am.
Okay. Did it appear that Ms. Dykes and Ms. Marano's phones were in the same area as each other?
Generally, yes, ma'am.
Okay. And the other question that I had asked you to look at generally, because you had records on out through sometime in November, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And records even just prior to, just a few days prior to this October 5th.
The records that I had for all three phones started October 1st.
October 1st, okay. And was there any other activity that indicated that the cell phone devices of Ms. Dykes or Ms. Marano were in the Wilmer location a second time?
No, ma'am.
Okay. And did it ever indicate, was there ever an indication that Mr. Beltran's phone was ever in that area?
No, ma'am. There was no activity showing the device associated with Mr. Beltran in the area of Wilmer, and the only time was for the other two devices, which was between 6:36 and 7:38 p.m. on the 5th.
Okay. And then lastly, Ms. Botello's phone, the last, I guess, contact with cell phone tower that was reported that we have is 8:09 a.m. on October 5th. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And that appears to be consistent with being possibly at that location in the house.
Yes, ma'am. It's in the area of the residence. I can't say obviously it was at the residence, but with the time in advance and everything, it was in the area of the residence.
Your Honor, pass witness.
Can I do the mic back?
Yes.
All right, cross-examination.
Just real quickly, as far as the phone records, you're talking about 1 month of phone records, right?
Month and a half. Some of them, the phones stopped having activity earlier than others, but I don't have a long time of activity.
Specifically, Charles Beltran's phone stopped having activity.
His phone, his last activity was on October 15th in New Orleans.
So if after October 15th, he went to that Wilmer, you have no idea, right?
No, sir.
Again, we're talking about devices. We're not talking about, you're not saying Ms. Dykes was at that area, right?
No, sir. I think I tried to make it very clear that I'm talking about a device.
You did. But whether or not Ms. Dykes and Ms. Marano had been to that area before October 1st, you have no idea because those are records you checked, right?
I didn't have those records, so no, sir. There's no way I could determine that.
And I think just so clear, you're saying that in the rural areas, they're more, those towers are spread out more, right?
Yes, sir.
And that's what this,
I think it's slide 14.
yeah, this is showing, right?
Yes, sir. As you can see, I started, if I didn't say it, all those little dots you see, the blue dots are AT&T towers, the green dots are T-Mobile towers. So as you can see, there's not nearly as many dots on this map just because we're in a more rural area, so the towers are spread farther apart.
And as far as Mrs. Botello's phone, you don't know why her phone stopped sending signals, correct?
No, sir. It just came off the network, so it could have been turned off. It could have broken. Could have ran out of battery. Yes, sir. I can't say it just went off the network.
But as far as your records, there's no indication that her phones were down in that room, right?
No, sir.
I thought the
That's all I have.
defendants
Yes, sir.
had lots of cash.
Excuse me, any refresh?
No, Your Honor.
This lawyer, I mean, I understand where he's going, but I don't think he's asking good questions. And okay, seems like it is the lunch break after this. Things for you who were here in the beginning, there's a storm brewing on the coast of Denmark and Sweden. It's over the United Kingdom now. And I need to get out and secure things because I hear how things are rattling outside. So I need to tie stuff down. So yeah, I'm going to stop for now. And tomorrow, I don't know if I can stream. It all depends on if I have to be out delivering sandbags, because they have orange warning here about high flooding in my area. I'm 5 miles from the coast, and they are currently saying water levels will be 5 feet above normal. So yeah, I don't know if I will be able to stream tomorrow. I will try, but I can't guarantee anything. What I will do tomorrow, whether I stream or not, is to present the donations you all gave to GD, to make sure I give you all the receipts from when I transfer everything over to GD. That I will do tomorrow, but I'm not entirely sure due to this storm if I can actually stream. All right, so I'm going to turn in, or yeah, I have to go and secure stuff. I will be handing you over to Megan Fox. She is doing something about the Maya trial. So thank you all for being here. I hope I can see you here tomorrow. If not, I will see you Saturday on. I will do a stream on this. The second part of date 3 will, if not tomorrow, Saturday. All right. Thank you all. Have a great Christmas, and thank you again for the donations to GD. Thank you so much. I will see you all later. Bye-bye.